before supermarkets, garden centers, and bags of fertilizer, survival often depended on one thing: whether your garden could keep producing food. And according to old stories passed down through rural families, some of the most effective off-grid gardening methods were considered suspicious, restricted, or discouraged at different times and places. Today, many of these forgotten techniques are simply practical ways to save seeds, protect soil, conserve water, and grow more food with fewer resources. This is the story of 25 forgotten gardening secrets our grandparents used to survive. The first secret was saving seeds. Instead of buying new seeds every spring, families selected seeds from their strongest tomatoes, beans, squash, and other crops. Year after year, they saved the plants that survived drought, pests, and poor soil. Over time, their gardens became adapted to their own land. Second came companion planting. Corn, beans, and squash were often grown together. The corn created a natural structure. The beans helped enrich the soil, and the squash spread across the ground, helping shade it and reduce moisture loss. Third was composting everything. Vegetable scraps, leaves, manure, grass, and other organic material were turned into valuable soil. Nothing useful was wasted. A pile of what looked like garbage could become next season's fertilizer. Fourth was planting by the weather instead of the calendar. Experienced gardeners watched the soil, wind, birds, insects, and temperature. They understood that a date on a calendar could not tell them everything about their land. Fifth was rainwater collection. Barrels, tanks, and containers captured water from roofs. During dry periods, that stored water could mean the difference between a healthy garden and a failed harvest. Sixth was using mulch. Straw, leaves, wood materials, and other natural coverings helped keep soil moist and protected it from extreme temperatures. The seventh secret was crop rotation. Families avoided planting the same crop in the same place every year. Moving crops around the garden helped manage soil nutrients and reduce recurring pest and disease problems. Eighth was natural pest control. Instead of relying entirely on commercial products, gardeners used barriers, hand removal, beneficial insects, and carefully chosen plants to protect their crops. Ninth was growing food vertically. Beans, peas, and other climbing plants were trained onto poles, fences, and simple wooden structures. This allowed a small garden to produce more food. 10th was succession planting. Instead of planting everything at once, gardeners planted crops in stages. When one section was harvested, another could be planted. The garden kept producing. The 11th secret was protecting heirloom varieties. These plants were often valued because families could save their seeds and preserve varieties selected for flavor, storage, climate, or reliability. 12th was cold frames and simple season extenders. Old windows, wood, and other available materials could create protected spaces that allowed gardeners to start earlier or continue growing later into the year. 13th was using animal manure carefully as a soil amendment. When properly handled and composted, it added organic matter and nutrients back into exhausted ground. 14th was growing medicinal and useful herbs alongside food crops. Mint, sage, chamomile, garlic, and other traditional plants could serve multiple purposes around the household. 15th was planting edible perennials, berry bushes, fruit trees, asparagus, and other long-lasting plants could produce food year after year with less replanting. 16th was building soil instead of simply feeding plants. Old gardeners understood that healthy soil supported healthier crops. Compost, cover crops, mulch, and organic matter were long-term investments. 17th was using cover crops. When a section of land was resting, certain plants could protect the soil, reduce erosion, and add organic material when incorporated later. 18th was seed sharing. Neighbors exchanged varieties that performed well locally. A community could preserve plants without depending entirely on commercial suppliers. 19th was storing food for winter. Growing food was only half the battle. Families learned to dry, can, ferment, cellar, and otherwise preserve harvests for the months when gardens stopped producing. 20th was planting trees for more than fruit. Trees could provide shade, wind protection, habitat for beneficial wildlife, and materials for the homestead. 21st was using every available space. Small yards, fence lines, containers, and neglected corners became productive growing areas. 22nd was observing the garden every day. A few minutes of attention could reveal wilting plants, insect damage, changing weather, or disease before a small problem became a disaster. 23rd was keeping seed and garden knowledge alive through generations. Grandparents taught children when to plant, how to save seeds, and how to recognize a healthy crop. That knowledge was often as valuable as the harvest itself. 24th was adapting instead of forcing nature. If one crop repeatedly failed, experienced gardeners changed their approach. They chose different varieties, adjusted planting times, improved the soil, or used another part of the land. And the 25th secret may have been the most important. Self-reliance did not mean doing everything alone. Families survived because they shared knowledge, seeds, labor, and harvests. These methods were not magic, and the idea that all of them were literally illegal is more legend and dramatic storytelling than historical fact. But the deeper truth remains powerful. Many traditional gardening practices were forgotten, as modern food systems made survival skills seem unnecessary. Today, as more people explore off-grid living, homesteading, self-sufficiency, survival gardening, and sustainable food production, these old techniques are finding new life. The lesson our grandparents understood was simple. A garden is more than a collection of plants. It is stored knowledge. It is preparation. It is independence. And sometimes, the oldest secrets are still the ones worth remembering. Now, imagine this. One morning, you wake up and the shelves are empty. The trucks have stopped. The stores have nothing left. And suddenly, every packet of seeds, every bucket of water, and every square foot of soil becomes more valuable than money. For generations, our grandparents lived with a reality most people have forgotten. Food was never guaranteed. A bad winter, a drought, a crop disease, or an economic disaster could turn an ordinary family into a desperate one almost overnight. But some families had an advantage. They knew things that were rarely written in books. Secrets passed quietly from grandparents to parents. from parents to children, and from neighbor to neighbor. How to save a seed that could feed your family next year. How to turn scraps and waste into rich soil. How to grow food in a tiny space. How to collect water when the sky finally opened. How to make one successful harvest last through an entire winter. Today, we call many of these methods off-grid gardening, survival gardening, homesteading, or sustainable living. But back then, they were simply survival, and some of these practices became surrounded by stories of being illegal, forbidden, restricted, or unwanted because they challenged dependence on outside supplies, protected local knowledge, or conflicted with rules that varied by place and time. Imagine being told that the food security of your family depended on a few skills no one teaches anymore. No garden center, no delivery truck, no emergency trip to the supermarket. Just dirt, seeds, water, and whatever knowledge you had managed to keep alive. That is where our story begins, because hidden inside old farms, rural homesteads, and forgotten family traditions are 25 gardening secrets that helped ordinary people survive when modern conveniences disappeared. The first secret sounds almost too simple to matter. Save your seeds. But think about what that really means. One tomato is not just one meal. Inside, it may be the beginning of next year's garden. One healthy bean plant can become dozens more. One successful squash can carry the possibility of another harvest. Our grandparents understood something many people forgot. Buying seeds every year was convenient, but knowing how to preserve and select seeds created resilience. And that was only the beginning. They learned to make the soil itself work for them. They planted crops together so one could support another. They covered the ground to protect precious moisture. They watched the weather like a warning system. They saved rainwater. They rotated crops. They used every corner of land. Nothing was ignored. Nothing useful was wasted. And perhaps that is the most shocking part. The survival garden was not built on expensive technology. It was built on observation, patience, and knowledge. A family could look at a pile of leaves and see future fertilizer. They could look at an empty fence and see a vertical garden. They could look at a coming storm and see stored water. They could look at one successful plant and see next year's food. But here is the question: if everything modern disappeared tomorrow, how much food could you grow? How long could your knowledge keep your family going? Could you save seeds? Could you protect your soil? Could you keep a garden alive through drought, pests, cold, and uncertainty? Or would you discover that convenience had quietly replaced the skills your grandparents once considered essential? Because the truth is, these forgotten gardening methods are not really about going backward. They are about remembering. Remembering that food does not begin in a supermarket. It begins with soil, with water, with seeds, and with the knowledge to turn those simple things into survival. So, stay with us, because the next 25 secrets may completely change the way you look at your backyard.